Okay, good afternoon, everybody. This is Rebecca Hutton again with NIMS. Thank you for joining us. We have several members of our staff on the call as well. We have Dina Igo, Monica Marshall, Carla and Kendra, and then Montez is here. He'll be delivering the bulk of the presentation. Before we get started, it looks like most of you have found these features, but if you have questions or if you want to chat with each other, you can use these two features. If you have a question that you want to go to us, please use the Q&A button. That's what we will mostly be monitoring. If you put things in the chat, we will get it, but we may not discuss it on this call. Okay, so this is about the new NIMS inspector credential that was released last year. We've done some piloting and we've done, we've received a lot of feedback from you. So this webinar is kind of addressed to people who have either participated in the pilot or those who are interested in learning more about the inspector credential and what is involved in earning it and what some of the benefits are for you and your organization. So the goals for this webinar are to address some updates that we've made to the test, which are based on your feedback. We want to talk about the purpose of this exam, highlight some of the training resources available to you, and then we will have Q&A at the end for anything that hasn't been covered. One thing this workshop or this webinar is not here to do today is to address technical GDT questions. We will talk about GD&T and measurement at a high level as it pertains to this exam and the goals of this exam, but it's not to teach GDT or to go into technical questions like that about the exam. So why did NIMS design an inspector credential in the first place? Part of it was to address the community's need and requests to allow you to inspect your own parts due to struggles with making the MET-Tech process work and delays that was causing and problems that was causing for your schools. So in order for NIMS to have the confidence that those inspections are being done correctly and in line with industry standard, we developed an exam to validate the inspection credentials at the organization before we allow you to validate your own parts. So it does eliminate the need for a MET-Tech. If you earn this credential, you can inspect your own parts, which reduces those bottlenecks that you've had where you're waiting on a MET-Tech and maybe the individuals in your MET-Tech are bogged down with their own work and aren't able to get back to inspecting parts for students. Another benefit of the inspector credential, the credential is yours, the individual, not the organization. So, NIMS has accreditation programs for organizations, but this is a credential that certifies you as an inspector of NIMS parts. So you can take that with you wherever you go. If you're an inspector at a community college and one of the local high schools has a NIMS program and they aren't able to, either they don't have the resources or the equipment necessary to inspect parts, but you can inspect parts for them as well. Or if you move to a different organization, this credential will follow you wherever you go. For additional benefits, Montez, do you have anything to add to that?
Well, hello everyone, and I'm feeling a little under the weather, so my voice is a little faint. Please let us know through the chat if you don't understand what I'm saying or you cannot hear me. This is a very important slide because I do want the community to see the value and of the actual credential and what it can bring to your organization. I get a chance to travel to many different locations in 1 year. I mean, we probably have over 2,600 organizations registered under NIMS. It's very difficult to get to every one, but as I do get to different organizations throughout the year, there's a lot of commonality that I see from one organization to the next. and one has definitely been for high volume credentialing organizations. There was a bottleneck in the part verification process, and that came from our process that includes having a third party inspect the work. So that's someone other than the program itself. And that's what we call NetTech. So with that bottleneck, it's difficult for some organizations with high volume to sign on to NIMS. And even for the lower volume, even though they're getting away with it, they're thinking, you know, if the process could be much faster and smoother for us if we didn't have to go through a third party or what we call NetTech. So this credential is not a performance-based credential, it's a knowledge-based credential. We're looking for confidence, and we're going to get into that word much more in the other slides, confidence, building confidence. But we needed more confidence before signing off that an individual location or program can sign off on their own work. So this credential was put in place for us to build confidence in specific organizations to allow them to sign off on their own work. And I would like to also emphasize that credential follows you. So if you were to go to another school or transfer to another program, yes, that program is automatically, with your presence, that program is automatically qualified to sign off on the parts with your signature. So I think this is a good benefit for our network, and we're hoping that we can build more knowledge so that we can get more passes on the exam. So we'll get into these slides a little bit more. I just wanted to emphasize the value and the importance of the credential.
Okay, thank you, Montez. One thing I glossed over a little too quickly is some of the updates we've made to the exam. For those of you that have taken it and either earned the credential or are still working toward earning the credential, we've received your feedback on that, and we know there were some of the images were not clear what feature was being identified, and some of the wording of the questions was confusing. We have received that feedback and we've made those changes so that the test is currently live in the updated form. So we have heard you. We also removed some questions that were more NIMS process questions because based on the feedback that you provided. So we're not going to go into details about those changes, but for those of you who have taken it, I just wanted to be clear that we received your feedback and we have incorporated it into this version of the exam. So if you took it within the last 6 months and you didn't pass it, you can contact our staff and you can retake it at no additional charge. If you already purchased the exam, we won't charge you for the retake. So I just wanted to make sure that was clear before we move on into the more detailed part of the presentation. So the objective of this exam and the inspector credential is to confirm that the individual inspecting the parts has the knowledge needed to actually verify those parts in a legal way, and understanding the geometric controls and the prints, being able to interpret them and legally verify that the parts meet their requirements. And with that, I will hand it over to Montez to start getting into some of the detail of.
Yeah, so these are three major components of the exam. Is what we're looking for now. Remember, it's all knowledge-based, and it's based on measuring parts congruent with NIMS standards. So it's congruent with those standards, no other standards. And there are three major points that we're looking for. The takeaways from the exam is, one, understanding those geometric controls, not just the symbols. Many people go into GDT and they'll say, okay, I know. Well, there's actually 12 symbols now, but depending on what standard you're working from. But the latest standard is 12, but the older standards, there are 14 geometric control symbols, characteristics, and the exam just doesn't look for your ability to state what each symbol means or say the name of the symbol. It gets into more of the features and the attributes that you're controlling and legal methods for verification. We're also looking for unity. We want a unified print interpretation. We can, again, we have over 2,600 organizations registered. And as I go from one organization to the next, we can see different interpretations of the print. Not that there's two ways of looking at it. There's only one way to look at it, but they're being interpreted differently. And then we have, we've seen many areas for datum simulations. When we talk about datum simulations, we're talking at the level of machine tool setups, where the prints are being ignored for the geometric controls. And the simulations are done, the setups on the machines are done based on craftsmanship. It's maybe, well, this is the way I've done it for 10, 15, 20 years. And so the geometric controls are actually ignored because you're relying on your craftsmanship. And it doesn't mean that the two can't work together, but you have to draw a distinction and know the difference between the two. So these three areas, understanding the geometric controls to the level of what you're controlling, what features you're controlling and their attributes, and legal methods for verification, unity and print interpretation, and how to actually do your datum simulations, which is basically machine setups when it comes to actually making the parts. Now, of course, that goes into simulating datums to actually check the parts as well. So, you can look at how you're setting it up, and then how you set it up, it merges to how you're actually checking it. So the two, they're not always the same, but you need to know the difference between the two and how to move in between both. Okay. So some of the updates since the exam was released on feedback, I think, yes, we removed bonus questions on affidavit submission process. So that was something that we put in there as, just bonus for gaining points, and also for us to get an understanding that you understand the process. But we did get a little bit of feedback on that, and we took it out. Just consensus that it should be taken out. More detailed feedback. We did update our system to get more detailed feedback. So please let us know what you think about the new feedback system. There were some images that had to be improved, so we did improve pictures. We clarified some wording of questions, and we may get into this through some questions within our audience. But I want to be clear that there's only so much clarification on questions that can be completed, because at one point it's going to lead to knowledge of the subject. The more knowledge of the subject you have, the better you will, the more accurately you will interpret the wording. But there are cases where the wording can be improved, and that's what we looked at. But just not confusing that with, you could have need a boost in your knowledge levels, and that will help with wording the wording of the questions as well. And then we have a study guide that has been updated, and we definitely think you should look at that study guide before attempting to take the exam. Okay. So now we want to get into the big picture. Now remember what was said earlier. We're not going to answer any technical questions about GDT in this workshop. It's not, or this session, it's not designed for that. But we do look forward to your questions, and we'll give you direction on how to send questions in, and areas and how you can improve your knowledge, or even just different types of training and workshops that can be facilitated by NIMS. But I want everyone to see the big picture, okay? Now, here's the big picture. This is where we've seen the biggest challenges within our community of organizations. It is relaxed checks versus legal checks. So some of you may be able to put together what a legal check is, and that's you can kind of read the title and say, okay, I understand what you're saying, but what is relaxed checks? So we're going to get into that a little bit, but we want, this is the big picture and the main focus for through our observations throughout our community, is not knowing the difference between relaxed checks versus legal checks. And if you are doing a legal check, what is the legal check? What are the legal methods that you can use? So as we move through the future slides, it's about relaxed checks versus legal checks. So let's dig into it a little more, and let's look at some inspection scenarios and a little bit of definition for relaxed and legal. So when we say a relaxed check, we're talking about an unofficial measurement that's only used to build confidence. So just imagine if you, now you don't need, this is really pretty simple for anyone on this call that if you're in the trade. When you're working on the shop floor and you have a part or something that you're manufacturing, and you don't necessarily have all of the legal tools to check it at the machine. There could be various reasons why. But you could maybe, to check it legally, you have to take the part out of the machine, and you don't want to do that. Or maybe you could check it legally, but you just don't have that dimensional measuring resource or tool that can get that allows you to check it. And so you have to check it in a way that's unofficial. It's not legal, but it gives you the confidence that when you take it off the machine, or when you go take it for legal verification, it's correct. So many times, a machinist or whatever your role or title is, you have to work in a relaxed method because you just don't have resources or like I said, different reasons for that. And then you're building your confidence for legal. So let's go into two different scenarios where you'll see very common someone doing relaxed checks and not doing legal checks. So let's say you're checking the location of a hole that is geometrically controlled from 3 plane surfaces. So let's say there's something simple like a 10-thou diametrical tolerance zone, and then it's a rectangular block. So you got 3 plane surfaces that are being controlled perpendicular, and you have a couple of holes that you're checking location. We're going to go into how this is normally checked in a relaxed method versus the legal method. And let's look at the second scenario. Let's say we're checking the parallelism of 2 plane surfaces. So you have something on the floor, you're manufacturing, and you got 2 plane surfaces that are parallel to one another, and you're trying to check it for parallelism. So that's the actual control. No need for a tolerance here. Doesn't matter at this point. Okay, so we've got relaxed and we've got legal. Relaxed is unofficial, it builds confidence, and legal is actual official measurement. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. So let's look at scenario 1, where we were trying to get a hole location. So many of you on this session will commonly use a pair of dial calibers to check the location of holes to 3 different plane surfaces for a rectangular block of some sort. So you use your calipers, you check the tangent of the holes, you do a little math, and you say, okay, I'm on location. So you check you may check your x-axis, you may check your y-axis, and you say, okay, this hole is in location. But that is relaxed because it's not legal. The hole is being controlled from 3 different planes all at the same time. So there's no way for you to check the hole location legally by only checking it from 1 surface at a time. And even with the dial calibers, you're not checking the whole surface. You're only checking what the caliber can reach through its claws. So you still don't know the location of that hole from that axis for the entire surface that is being dimensioned from. So this is what we call a relaxed check. You're building the confidence that is right for the legal check. The legal check would be, let's say you're using a coordinate measuring machine and some accessories, and you're setting that up to legally check the hole from 3 different plane surfaces. Or let's say you're doing a conventional inspection or mesh verification, and you may have to use a surface plate, an angle plate, say a 90-degree angle plate, height gauge, dial indicator, and gauge blocks. And so you're simulating, or you're simulating the datum using the surface plate and the angle plates, and you're locating a part, you know, locking all 6 degrees of freedom, 3 points, 2 points, and 1 point, and then you're checking the tangent of the hole, and then you switch that out for your X, you switch that out for your Y. So those are the legal ways to check it. But when it's on the machine, you're doing a relaxed check. So here's the question. If you're doing a relaxed check, do you know that it's relaxed and it's not legal? See, no one's making an argument if you have to do a relaxed check, but the question is, do you know that it's relaxed and it's not legal? So our observations throughout the community is there are many organizations that they don't know the difference. They're saying, they're looking at it as, yes, I can check the parts and I can guarantee the parts are right. Okay, we are saying, yes, you're building confidence that it's right, but do you understand that that is not the legal way to check it? That is not a full verification. And so what the exam does is it's looking for knowledge from you to determine if you know the difference between the two. So let's go through scenario 2. Scenario 2 is parallelism. So in many scenarios, you'll see someone taking a pair of micrometers and measuring the part at different locations around the two surfaces. And you're saying, okay, I believe it's parallel. I think it's parallel. But micrometers only measure size. It's a linear measuring device. It cannot check orientation. It is checking size. However, you can use the micrometers to build the confidence that parallelism will be correct. But if you go to the legal side, of course, you can use your CMM and accessories to check parallelism. But then if it's conventional, you can use a surface plate, a height gauge, and a dial indicator, and you can use those tools to check parallelism. But legally, you can't check parallelism with the micrometers. There's just no way to do that. But if you're doing it to build confidence, we understand that, but we need to know that you also understand the legal process. How do you actually verify? Because we can't go off of confidence as much as we need to know that you have the knowledge, and coming soon will be the performance side as well to verify on the legal side. So those are just 2 scenarios that go into relaxed versus legal. And there are so many more that you'll see that you do on the shop floor that fall into this category. We just gave you 2 to give you an idea of the big picture for the exam. So at this point, we want to go into some of the training resources, because we understand that if you take the exam and you don't pass it, maybe you need to brush up. I left the trade, well, I never really left the trade, but I've been in this business since I was 13 years old, at least, when I was introduced. Started training at 14, had my first job at 16, and I never done anything else. I've done other things, but I never left the trade. So always in it. But there was a point in time where I wasn't working on the machines or in the environment for, I think it's like 6 months, maybe less, about 6 months. And through that time, I just forgot. I forgot about a few things that I needed to brush up on. So when I got back into the swing of things, I had to brush up on some skills, right? And I could say, hey, I've been doing this for 15, 20, 30 years. I can say that, but it doesn't matter. My skills, I need to brush them up. I need some, a little bit of fine tuning in the skills that I have, and just honing it out so that I can get back to where I was or even improve. And so these training resources, I want everyone to not be afraid of going back and doing some type of training to familiarize yourself, because we can work in our environments for a period of time and we do lose things, right? And so of course, this mathematical language is something that you can learn and you can apply this year, But if you have not used it within the last 6 months to a year, you are going to lose something, right? It's just natural. If you're not using it, you're going to lose a part of it. And so these training resources we recommend so that you can boost your skills up and pass the exam. So as we go through the study resources, this is one, it's number one. It's a NIMS facilitated GDT Train the Trainer workshop. Now, I've personally facilitated many of these workshops. I can't say that I'll do that this year or next year, but we are working with several other individuals who can provide that training and have taken this exam and gotten really good results. I'm talking probably in the high 80s, near 100. And so they can definitely work with our audience and help out. And it's a trainer, and it's a very powerful workshop. It's a 2-day workshop, and I feel very comfortable in saying that if you go through this training workshop, passing this exam will be something that comes a lot easier to you, and it's just in 2 days. Now, there are prerequisites for it. You don't want to just start brand new. You got to have some familiarization to it, but it is a very powerful workshop. So we also, some of you have gotten so close to passing. I'm talking about Monica is here. She can attest to this more than I can, but I would say some have missed the exams. Would you say by 3 points?
Absolutely. We have many that missed it within a 7-point rate.
Yeah, 7 points. So in those cases, it may be that you don't need a workshop or anything, but you could go to our frequently asked questions or our detail page, or maybe our study guide, or maybe you just need to brush up on your own personal textbooks that you may have. But you were so close, it was right there. And then some of the scores were extremely low, right? Some of the scores were extremely low. In those cases, yes, we can look and say, okay, well, we can make a few adjustments to the questions to make them more clear, less ambiguous in the interpretations. But when the scores get to a certain point, it's more about knowledge attainment than it is the questions themselves. And so we have other resources. If you don't want to do our NIMS workshops, you can go to our GDT training and textbooks provided by Technical Consultants Incorporated, and you can take, they have some online, just online modules that you can take. And we actually had, I want to say this, I think, Monica, you correct me if I'm wrong, there were either one or multiple people who had failed the exam and then went through this course. I think it's $299 or something.
$299 for the course, and they were successful on their next attempt at our test.
Yeah, next attempt, they passed it, right? Next attempt, they passed it. So, and and if there is a problem going to that website and you're not familiar with how to navigate around and you have questions, please call and ask us, and we can help you through, or you can call someone from that line. But we will definitely work with you, because this is important to us, not just to NIMS, but we know it's important to you as well. It's not just the benefit of writing a verified NIMS parts, but it will help you in your career throughout. So please, we want to work with you. So this is a good resource. It's been proven, and it works, and it can help you. So now, we want to go into a Q&A and answer some of the questions that may or may not come through, but we want to, we'll make sure we give you an opportunity to ask as many questions as possible throughout the time that we have. So I'm going to sit back and listen and see if I can answer any questions.
Okay, so we've got some questions here. Hi, everybody. This is Dina. I think a lot of you know who I am. I'm the business development lead here, and have talked to a lot of you alongside Monica and Montez and Rebecca. So thank you, Kendra, so much for answering some of the questions that have come in. And then there's some definitely that we have left open for a live answer. So the first question that came in, Montez, is from Kyle, and he asked, is this applicable to manufacturing companies or just schools and training centers?
So manufacturing companies, if you have an inspection department and you hold to a standard in your inspection department, then you don't have to take the exam because you have qualified inspectors. So this is more for the trainers or programs at schools that have inspection rooms where they have equipment, but they don't necessarily make parts for a manufacturer and have to subscribe to any type of standard. So I hope that answered your question. You know, when we're sending it to third parties like a company, that's where if they're making parts for other organizations, we have that confidence already, having it go through your inspection department. But if it's outside of that, then that's where this credential comes in.
Great. So the next question came from Mark Martin, and he asked, can NIMS work on having CMM programs created for the NIMS parts? For instance, we have a Zeiss Duramax at our college, and if NIMS worked with Zeiss to have inspection programs created for Zeiss CMMs, it would help us to inspect our parts.
So the answer to that is yes. We are in contact with many different dimensional metrology tool manufacturers and that have resources. But the one thing I will add is, so NIMS recently released a document called our Performance Measures Development Requirements Package. And so we are now allowing schools to use their own projects for NIMS Credential, and not just our off-the-shelf projects that you may be used to or familiar that you're using NIMS as your credentialing service provider. And so with that said, this PM package would include all of those pieces. And so the PM has 6 quality metrics, where our old projects, they have maybe 1 or 2, maybe 3 of those quality metrics, but they don't have all of them. But with the new one, where we have, where there's project, which is everything that's given to whoever's being validated for the project, but then there's delivery, and that's everything that's goes to the facilitator, and having the CMM program would go inside that metric. So the absolute answer is yes, and we're working to make canned solutions where you can download all this information and all of these resources, and you can go to work right away without having to invest in your CMM programs and other processes that may be needed to verify and validate performance.
Thank you. Okay.
And one last thing, the deadline for that is we are going to work diligently through 2020 to provide actual PMs to our customers. So this is the year for that. So thank you for bringing that question up.
Great. So the next question is from Ross Porter, and he asks, and actually this came up a couple of times, can one community college inspect the other school's parts if the teacher doesn't have the inspector credential?
Absolutely, yes. Absolutely. As long as they have that inspector credential, you can use, because it travels with the individual. It doesn't sit with the school.
Great, thank you. The next one came from Michael Corby. Would you consider a Faro or a Romer arm legal checks?
That it will be a legal check. With those portable devices, you can check location, orientation, and form. So yes, you can use those to legally check.
What are the dial or digital calipers legal to use? And that came from David Gibson.
So calipers, dial calipers, micrometers, they can be legally used to check size. Some people will try to use, they will try to use calibers or, to check location, but that's not legal. But they are linear measuring devices, so they're used legally to check size.
Thank you. Aiden Eno asked, can a student get this credential?
We are working with Boeing and OMIC right now to design inspector credentials, dimensional measurement, metrology credentials. They will be released. Well, our goal is to release them by the end of 2020, and that will be used for the actual students.
What score do you need to get to pass the test?
At this point, we are moving it to 50 questions. We've taken away some of the bonus questions for areas outside of, areas within the affidavits. And so there are 50 questions. You have to get 40 of the 50 correct, so you can only get 10 wrong, and that is an 80% cut score.
Yes. If a student doesn't have a MedTech committee, can they still get a credential such as machining level 1? What's the procedure to do this?
So machining level 1 consists of about 11 different credentials. There are, Monica, go ahead.
There are 3 credentials that the instructor can sign off on in machining level 1.
Okay. And
Name them.
yeah, can you give me those credentials?
The 3 that an instructor can sign off on are the job planning and benchwork layout, the CNC mill operator, and the CNC lathe operator. Now, of course, the measurement, materials, and safety, it's the only credential that we have that is a 1 part, so there is no part, meaning there is no instructor or MedTech committee needed to sign off on it. It's an online theory test only. So technically there's 4, however, 3 of the 4, the instructor can sign off on.
So I want to also add, this might be a little off target, but I still want to add it for the CNC milling and turning operators. They are cars. Our goal is to remove cars with PMs. And so we will be offering you full canned packages of what we call PMs, performance measures, that will give you everything you need to truly validate someone as a CNC operator, whether it's turning and milling or turning or milling. And so right now you are signing off on cars, but we are providing a package that gives you the ability to more clearly validate. For example, a car is simply a list of tasks that you are requiring an individual to perform 3 times accurately to sign off on their performance. So the PMs will actually give you a practical experience that's more common and more, again, practical to sign off on that. But the rules won't change, however, the experience will.
And if you want more information on the PMs, you can find that on our website. Just type in performance measures. We've got a 2-hour webinar on that, plus the PowerPoint presentation, just like this format. And feel free to reach out with any questions, but we have a lot of information on the PM separately on our website. Okay, the next question is, and I think I've answered that one, Max. Can you show the last slide with the training information? It's right here, but I just want to tell everyone, you will all get the slides and the recording in the next couple of hours. It just, it takes a little while for it to download, but everyone on this will get the recording and the slides. The next question came from David Olson. There are many GD&T educators and content. Are we limited to GeoToll, or can we use other resources?
Yeah, you can use other resources, absolutely. Use any other resources, and you can also call in to NIMS and ask a question that you are unfamiliar with GDT. It could be just, you'd be surprised at, if I answered 2 or 3 questions for you, you could probably pass the exam. Right? It might be 2 or 3 questions that are confusing you about something, and giving you that information or knowledge could be the difference for you passing. So yeah, you can send in your questions, and we have several technical people that can answer that for you.
Great. Jeff Jensen asked, is there a website where I can search a roster of people with their news credentials?
Well, so we do work with Student Clearinghouse, but I think that's more for companies to verify that you have a credential. Let me get back with you on that. I'm not sure about that. I have to get back.
Okay, thank you. Jim Himblick asked, how do I get a list of what other projects are okay to make instead of PMs?
PMs.
Yeah.
Yes.
Back to the PM.
Our goal is to create a curated repository of many different projects that you can use for NIMS credential, for the same credential. So in other words, you can earn the same NIMS credential but use a different part. And not only are we going to give you the project, but you'll have the full infrastructure. You'll have all of the tooling that you need, all of the documentation that you need. If you're doing a CNC operator credential, you're actually going to get the program that goes with the job, because remember, as an operator, you're not programming it. You have to demonstrate their ability to operate the machine. So you'll get the code and anything you need for inspection, everything, all of that goes inside of a PM, and that is coming out. We've already put the development package out, but now we're working with many different organizations to seed our content so that you can start downloading some useful PMs for your organization. Very good question.
Great. Okay, the next question is related from Frank Belucci, I think. Do you have files for the CMM that can be shared, that the CAD models and their strategies are in place so there's consistency on grading and NIMS parts?
Yeah, we can provide solid models for any of our projects. Yes.
Okay, we've got one here about recertification. Will there be a recertification for this credential?
The answer to that is yes. Probably it will be a recertification requirement for every 5 years. We'll be notifying you within this year what that recertification requirement will be. It may be as simple as just consistently inspecting parts accurately, like or just a retake of a smaller exam that's maybe 20 questions or something. But it will be a relatively easy process. But we want to make sure that if technology changes or if there are new things that come out in dimensional measuring, then we want to address that and just make sure that everybody's staying up with the current technology. So there will be a recertification requirement. You will have the information about that by the end of the year.
Thank you. Okay, so the next question is, I guess we can go with are CAD models to be made available for all NIMS parts with built-in GD&T?
I don't think we have the built-in. It's not written and within the solid models, but that's something that I can say we can look into doing, because it's not difficult to do that and include it inside it.
And can you use a micro height or a team height gauge for locations?
So as long as you simulate the datums. So yes, you can if you simulate all the datums. For example, if you're checking the location to 3 different planes, then you have to geometrically lock into the 3 different planes before you use the tool to check location in a specific axis. But if you're only locating off one datum and you're checking location, then you're omitting the geometric control. You're not controlling specifically to that geometric or that feature control frame. So the answer is yes, I can simulate my datums to do it, but I would have to see your actual setup, look at the actual feature control frame, and see if you simulated all the datums before using that tool.
Thank you. Sorry, before we go, Rebecca, for this recertification, will there be a cost associated with that process, an additional cost?
Yes, there will, but it'll be nominal. Just more of an administrative fee. It won't be anywhere near the cost of the actual exam.
Yeah, that came in a couple times. Okay, thank you. All right. So what if the manufacturing company doesn't have a formal inspection department, but have the equipment to legally inspect the parts?
That's a good question. If they're doing first articles, and basically they can do a first article with a customer that they're manufacturing parts for, we feel comfortable that they can measure the work.
Thank you. Someone asked about this whole Q&A section of the webinar will be available. Yes, the whole thing with the Q&A section will be available via recording. Okay, let's see. What other future certifications are being considered, such as reverse engineering, 3D printing? Do we have any?
Yeah, so we are working with several institutes for additive manufacturing to develop a credential. We are doing Industry 4.0 credentials. They are in development right now. We're doing dimensional metrology. That's in development right now. And we're actually in communications with another organization for robotics. So those are the ones that we're currently Well, two of them were actually in development, and the other two I mentioned were in communications, trying to get a formal agreement.
Okay, great. Are you allowed to use the machinist handbook for the test?
Yes,
I think any material that you think will help you.
yes.
Another question came in. Someone said, Bob said that he's in inspections for a number of years. Will this be of benefit because the company doesn't offer this? Assuming
Say it again.
I'm in inspections for a number of years. Will this be of benefit? My company doesn't offer this, so I'm assuming that he means the credential will be of benefit.
If you work for a company and would the credential be a benefit, is that the question?
Yes.
So I would say that it can be a benefit, but before the 2020 is up, we will have official NIMS credentials that are more for a company, someone going. So this credential is for you to verify parts congruent with NIMS standards. But if you're looking for a credential that's congruent to, or I say that leads you into either finding a job as an inspector or working within the role of an inspector at a company, that's where our Boeing and OMIC standards are coming out in 2020, and it will be more useful. But in the meanwhile, I think this is a great stepping stone before you get into that credential. So I would say yes, it's beneficial, but the standards that our goal to complete for 2020 is up. Those are the ones that hit more for focusing on a job and industry.
Thank you. And okay, it sounds like CMM, FARO, Romer type 2 is required. Is this correct?
Second.
So Dave, someone just wanted to clarify. Sounds like CMM, a FARO, or a Romer type 2 is required. Is this correct?
Yeah, think about it this way. If you are checking profile of a surface and you have multiple surfaces, maybe there's some type of shape other than, square, plane surfaces, there's no way for you to check the work. Right? I mean, yes, you could create some kind of elaborate fixture, like a go, no-go gauge, right? So maybe it's not telling you what it actually reading, but it might tell you that it's right or wrong. You can make some kind of elaborate fixture like that, but it's not practical in your environment. So yeah, the answer is if you have, it depends on your features, but if you're trying to control profile of a surface, that's very difficult to simulate in a conventional way. So that's where a CMM is very practical, very simple to measure that work. And even when you're checking some more conventional features, it can be very challenging. Let's say you have, let's say you have a hole that is located off of the midplane of two different plane surfaces. So the midplane is theoretical, right? It's not practical, it's theoretical. And if you're trying to check the location of a hole that comes from the midplane of two different plane surfaces, that is extremely difficult to check manually, right? It's extremely difficult. So that's where a CMM or a ferro arm or something like that makes it quick, down and dirty, easy, done. So that's how to answer that question. There are ways to check it conventionally, but it becomes very cumbersome and complex, where a CMM or a ferro arm or a portable device makes it very easy.
Okay, thank you. And what was the second metrology certification mentioned? So can you just quickly say again the ones that are coming?
Yeah, so the ones that are coming will be, for example, if you wanted to be certified as a CMM programmer, or you wanted to be a quality control inspector, or if you wanted to be a quality control data analysis inspector, something like that. I can't remember all the roles that were in. But if you wanted to work in data analysis, we're making credentials for that. So there, and it adds performance. So this credential that we have right now is all about knowledge, right? It's just 50 questions, getting questions that help us build confidence that you have the knowledge. But these credentials are going to be knowledge and performance. So it's a little different. So You know, it's one thing to have the knowledge of how something's done, it's another of knowing how to actually having the practical skills to verify on the shop floor and apply what you know.
Okay. After receiving the inspector certificate, can an inspector inspect his own parts in advanced NIMS certificates at levels 2 and 3?
So it's not meant for you to measure your own parts because you're biased to it. You know, your knowledge doesn't take away your bias to your own work.
Okay. Okay, Ken wanted to know, we have been asked by our local tech school to be approved NIMS inspector for them. We currently are active in the state apprenticeship program. If when I become an approved NIMS inspector, will each of my inspection setups for checking the incoming request for inspection need to be approved before I perform or sign off on the inspection, meaning the methods I use?
No, you don't need to sign off on your methods. We just need to understand that you can determine if a method is legal or not.
Which if you pass the test, that
Gives us the confidence. Yes,
And I guess kind of piggybacking off of that, what is the legal way to check concentricity requirements?
So I didn't want to answer any technical questions, but I will tell you that concentricity is actually off that has been removed from the 2018 ASME 14.5 standards. Concentricity has always been concentricity and symmetry have been removed. So they have always been misused. People think they're actually checking concentricity or they think they're checking symmetry, but they're not. And there's so much confusion that the ASME 14.5 committee decided to remove those two geometric controls from the standard. So if you're working off, 94 standards or anything later than 2018, you're still going to see concentricity. But that most companies are slow to update their prints. But those companies will be removing those geometric controls. Now, you may say, well, if you remove it, how do I control it? Well, there are many different, there are other controls like position can control concentricity where you don't need the actual concentricity. You can check it with other controls. And so there's been such a misconception on those two controls that they have removed them. So just to give you a heads up on that.
Thank you. So I think this question we may have already answered. Will we be required to submit our inspection results or be audited at some point to validate that we are continuously adhering? What documentation should we expect to archive in association with implementation?
At this point, there's no paperwork needed. You can sign off on that, but down the road, there are going to be some changes. So do be prepared to have that paperwork for an audit, yes. And that's not something immediate, but that's something within the next year.
But that's not necessarily your methods. We're not going to audit your methods for documentation paperwork. Our audit may consist of looking at your paperwork to show who signed off, and it may say, okay, demonstrate how you would, but it's not going to look at your paperwork, historical paperwork for methods. It only looks at historical paperwork for who actually signed off.
Do all the questions on the test refer to legal measurement only?
I'm sorry?
Do all the questions refer to only?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, questions on the exam are legal, not relaxed. You may say, hey, I can check that this way or I can check it that way. But if it's not legal, you're just checking it in a relaxed way. You ever heard that person say, I can use my 6-inch scale to measure within 3 thou. I mean, I've been in the trade. I see many guys who tell me that, many or maybe women too. And they'll tell me that they can do that. That's a relaxed check. That's not legal. You're just saying, I have confidence that I can do it, but it's not necessarily legal. So don't be challenged with saying, hey, what I can do or what I think can be done to get it right. That's not what we're looking for. We're looking for legally, how would you actually check it?
Yeah, and I guess following on the concentricity question, because concentricity and symmetry have been removed, what two GD&T symbols replace those on the current ANC? I think it's Y14.5 standard.
So that's all up to the designer to decide. So they can use total runout, they can use position, they can use a combination, but they'll use mainly those two. You can actually use, in some cases, probably you can use profile, but it's up to them to decide how they want to control it. But there are multiple other methods using different controls to get concentricity.
So what standards are all the NIMs held to currently?
Right now, they're all held to ASME, I believe it's Y14.5, 1994. So you may see a print out there that has concentricity on it. It is very difficult. I mean, it's very difficult to check. Unless you have a CMM, it's very difficult to check that conventionally.
Are there any new blueprints or pre-tests for any of the certificates? Any new blueprints? I think Joanna asked, I'm not sure, new blueprints meaning like newly developed ones that you did not.
Well, I can tell you that this year that NIMS will be working very diligently to give you to give you multiple options of prints and projects. So if you're saying, okay, have we updated our existing prints? Our goal is to give you, to seed our database with multiple projects, which would be result in prints as well, for the same credentials. So you may be going for a CNC programming and setup credential, and right now there's one print. But what our goal for 2020 is to give you maybe 5 or 6 different projects that you can choose to use for the same credential. So it's all based on what experience you're looking for. They're all aligned to the standard, but there's a different experience for each one.
Is NIMS coordinating with SAQ in defining knowledge required for inspection technicians and other professional titles? Are we coordinating with ASQ in any way to define knowledge required for inspection technician and other professional titles?
Yes, so all of our technical work group, they are certified, qualified. Those are the ones that are working on the stand. Our technical work group is a mixture of highly qualified professionals and dimensional measurements, and they're the ones that are defining the standards. As far as if you earn this credential, this is a stepping stone to some of those other professional credentials that you will earn in inspection.
Okay, thank you. So a question came up about GD&T Fundamentals online course from Tech Consultants. Monica, this could be good for you. Does it have a good success rate to pass the test? And we were saying that.
I can only speak to, I've spoken with 2 instructors, both of which took our test one time, were not successful, decided to take the route of this course at $299. It's an online course. Both passed on their second try. And they passed with a very decent rate, or a very decent score.
So if there's an individual who does not have confidence in the references for the online, please contact us so that we can work with you on another means of knowledge attainment. So that's not your only route. So if you are not comfortable with that, then we can take another route. I know for me, for something like this, I might want a workshop where someone's working with me and facilitating through the workshop. And in some cases, some people can go online. In some cases, some people just need a few brush-up questions to help them out. So I would really like to know where, whoever this individual is, where they are, where they're trying to be, and then maybe we can figure out what's the best path.
Yeah, so Ed, you can definitely shoot us an email. Someone had asked before, where do the questions and things like that go? You can just send everything to support@nims-skills.org. That email is our email on our website.
And it will be sent out as well to everyone on this, right?
Yes. And then the last question, I mean, this is more technical, but since you already sort of addressed this, I guess it's a clarification. So Marcel said that he heard your answer that there are currently 14 symbols, but his real question is, they were 14, but minus concentricity and symmetry, that reduces the symbols he's familiar with to 12. Which new 2 make up the 14?
There are no more, there aren't 14 anymore, there are only 12. So anything prior to 2000, I think it's 2018, yeah. Anything prior to 2018 was 14. Anything now and up is 12. There's only 12 symbols. They didn't make up 2 new ones.
Okay.
They just took 2 away.
So that was just a clarification. If you're an SME certified engineer, is there any benefit to having this certification?
If you're what?
SME certified engineer?
Well, if you are a certified engineer and you work for a school, you know, we still expect you to take the exam if you're going to measure parts for NIMS, which shouldn't be a problem if you are certified, because this is not at that level, right? It's not at that level at all. So if you are that engineer, you won't have a problem passing this exam. But if you have that credential and you work within a school, this is just our way of building that confidence. It's not like we're going to search to say, hey, do you have a credential? And we don't, you know, we're just looking to say that if for our needs, we just need you to take this exam. And so I say it's a benefit so that you're not in a bottleneck with NIMS verification process. That's where it is a huge benefit.
Thank you. And then I think this will be our last question. So it's again sort of going on the 12 symbols things, but basically early on we did state that the bonus questions have been removed. Were there any questions regarding bonus tolerancing, or were those only auxiliary questions? So they were only the auxiliary questions.
Yes.
So hopefully that clarifies that for you, Marcel. So at this time, I think we've gone through all of the questions in our Q&A session. If there's anything else, please feel free to send us an email, and we will send out this webinar presentation as well as the recording to everybody who registered. You can feel free to share it, forward it. It's also going to be added to our resources page for the inspector credential on our website. It's going to take us a couple days to get all this together, but everybody will have all of this information. So hopefully we've answered a lot of your questions. And Montez would like to say a couple last words, and then we'll let you guys go.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thanks everyone for participating. And listen, I know anytime come out with a new credential, there's going to be a lot of questions. You may be thinking, hey, it's a little bit too hard, it's a little bit too easy. Either way, either direction you want to take, we do appreciate you participating and helping us to unify our community. That's what it's all about. And so as more and more people earn the credential and we start sharing our knowledge, we can close this gap in GDT. And so I think this is really good for our for the entire community and going to the next level with the industry. And I really appreciate your input, everything that you give. We take everything seriously, so any input is good input. And I just want you to understand that we appreciate everything that you do to help us improve the quality of our products and services. So thanks again, and I hope everyone has a wonderful 2020, and I look forward to seeing you out there.
Yeah, thanks everyone for joining.
Thank you.